Nikita Mazepin, although not being present in the sport for almost 3 years, is still relevant, but for all the wrong reasons. And this could reach an additional boost as there has been an opportunity presented to the Russian driver in which he could make a comeback to the sport. Yes, you heard that right. We might be looking at more episodes of Mazepin, but in order for that to happen, a lot of cards would have to fall in the right place. The question is whether Alpine would have the guts to pull this move due to the massive financial boost they'd receive as a result, and whether Mazepin has matured enough to not crash the car on every second race he participates in. It's safe to say that one of the worst drivers to have entered the sport is Nikita Mazepin, and we don't have to look that much into his F1 career to understand how poor of a performer he was. In a total of 21 starts in 2021, Mazepin finished highest at P14 and crashed the car so many times that the team had to give up upgrading it and focus on 2022 as a result. Even though his father had a lot of investments behind his son, thanks to Uralkali, the title sponsor of Haas at that time, the Russian-Ukrainian invasion brought to the aftermath that Nikita was banished from the sport. And if you ask us, however bad of a driver he was, this was not the right way to deal with a driver. Be that as it may, in March this year, the ban was lifted from Nikita's name, and now he's able to compete in F1 again. And while it might sound bizarre to you, there is a genuine opportunity for him to do so. A merger between Alpine and Hitech is bound to happen from 2025 onwards, and the latter company, which saw its boss become the team principal of Alpine from Zandvoort onwards, has received significant investment from Kazakh billionaire Vladimir Kim. Obviously, the sanctions that the world has implied onto Russia did not have that big of an effect because of the market that this powerhouse has with other countries in the world, such as China, India, Pakistan, and of course the countries from the former USSR. So therefore, with the investments in Hitech being primarily from Dmitry Mazepin, the father of Nikita, he would obviously have a lot to say about whether his son would race in the foreseeable future in F1. For this to happen, Mazepin would have to re-obtain his super license, which is a huge obstacle for him at this stage in his career, but nevertheless, the funniest thing could be happening in front of our eyes, and we might not be realizing it quite at this moment, but Gasly and Mazepin being paired up from 2025 onwards. Who knows? I know what you're thinking. Alpine brought back Briatore, a man who has more than 2 brain cells, in order to understand that Mazepin is not the right choice for a driver, regardless of what type of situation the team is in. But I have to break down some more stuff for you so you'll be able to understand why Alpine could care more about the money than the drivers at this point in their existence. Not to take anything away from Mazepin, but his F1 experience has been pretty atrocious, so to speak, even though this might be the best opportunity for him to redeem himself as a solid F1 driver who could actually fight for points here and there. Obviously, he's had decent success outside of F1, such as in the LMP2 class of the Asian Le Mans series in 2023, with Mazepin starting at the 2024 campaign with 2 wins from the first 3 races, but this is far from what is needed for him to be considered a real contender in the most elitist racing show in the world. Now, the situation with Renault is not at its best, and as you probably all know, the partnership between Alpine and Renault is about to fall apart. While this definitely doesn't mean that Alpine will be out of F1, as the former team principal has reaffirmed the status of Alpine as an F1 contender, talks about new engine providers are on their way because of the deficit that Renault has compared to the rest of the grid. This is where Mercedes comes in really handy, as they've lost 1 customer in Aston Martin and they will be more than willing to fill it with another one, as Alpine are the perfect contenders to land the deal with the Silver Arrows now that this is likely the rock bottom they could be hitting with the performance of their car. Therefore, if the car performs really badly, it would be much more important for them to have the money to hire the right people and fix the car rather than have young drivers waste their talents in the car, as the team is now incapable of building machinery that would be able to fight for points and podium finishes. I mean, if you were to look at Alpine's recent history, you would notice a strange pattern of behaviour. They've been negotiating with OnlyFans. one of the most controversial marketing sites in the world, to become their primary sponsor, replacing BWT, as the company is ready to make a significant investment in the team in order to enter Formula One. OnlyFans are already present in other levels of racing, such as MotoGP2, where they have an entire racing team. So this, I guess, would just be the next chapter in their pursuit of more involvement in motorsport racing. Alpine have received a significant investment of $240 million from Hollywood stars last year, but it seems like that money has gone to waste, and at the return of the most controversial figure in the world of F1, Flavio Briatore, has raised some eyebrows among the F1 world. However, it points out the fact that Alpine are desperate at this moment, and they would use every atom of help that they can find. Briatore is known for his ability to raise a team from the dead, but in order to do that, he's also aware of the money effect, and in this situation, partnering up with Mercedes and building their car around Mercedes' engine could be the best opportunity for Alpine to be fighting back at the midfield. However, they have been lacking on several other areas in the sport, such as the weight of the car, the stability, as well as the presence of experienced staff. Your first thought right now is probably revolving around whether or not this experienced staff would like to work in a team that has Mazepin and his father behind his back, but for a substantial amount of money, people ought to keep their mouths shut and do what is asked of them without asking more questions around it. Now, there is definitely a lot of negativity around Alpine, even without the potential links to Mazepin, but this would definitely be perceived as the last nail in the coffin for the French team if they are unable to make it work, even with Uralkali, High-Tech and OnlyFans money to their bank accounts, as well as the help from Briatore. While it's still a small percentage that Alpine would consider signing Mazepin as their next driver to Gasly, as they've finally got rid of the toxic relationship that they've poised upon themselves with him and Ocon being a born nemesis to each other from their karting days, it's still not something that we could throw away from the window, mostly because of the fact that the team needs money, and when you need money, you tend to do whatever is being asked from you to do so. This would put the sport in massive jeopardy though, because if we're to look at Andretti, the man has invested in a lot of facilities worth more than $350 million. He signed a contract with General Motors and got Cadillac on board in order to build F1 engines, while on the other hand, he hasn't been granted the F1 entrance by the FOM due to the fact that he won't be bringing any value to the sport. If F1 considers that OnlyFans and Mazepin are bringing value to the sport, then it would likely result in a massive dip in the popularity and the watchability, especially now when even the 2024 season is far from over and the fight in both championships has been revived by the massive steps that have been made by McLaren and Mercedes. Therefore, the move of Mazepin to Alpine would also be looked very closely at by the FOM, as they would be smart to think twice whether they would let the sport become a fertile ground for advertisements like OnlyFans, as well as the controversial comeback of Uralkali. But with High-Tech poised to make a merger with Alpine, and with its boss Oliver Oakes being the team principal of Alpine from Zandvoort onwards, it would be interesting to see where the entire situation would be pushed towards, as right now it does seem like Alpine are the laughingstock of the sport, whether they sign the contract with Mazepin and OnlyFans or not. With all this in mind, do you think that he could make a return to the sport? And if so, where do you think this puts Alpine on the map of competitiveness? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.